What an awesome week we had at Vacation Bible School 2019. I want to thank this congregation for their incredible support of all of our children and youth ministry programs. You know, here at Dover First, we really do invest in our kids. From Dover First Christian School, from programs like Vacation Bible School and Flag Camp and Pathfinders, Adventurers, Sabbath School, kids come first here at this church. And I want to thank this congregation for their incredible support of these important programs. Let's bow our head for a quick word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this special time that we have to come together today to worship you and to celebrate how you've been working in the lives of these kids. We ask that for the next few minutes as we open up your word, that you would fill this place with your presence. In your name we pray. Amen. I am the daughter of ancient peoples. I am a priestess of the house of Baal. I worship the master of seasons. I pray to the author of rain. Over and over again in the darkness, she whispered the magic saying, feeling the rhythm of the words roll through her blood. Hour after hour, she sat in the blackness of the house, rocking the child in her lap and mouthing the sacred words. I am the daughter of ancient peoples. I am a priestess in the house of Baal. I worship the master of seasons. I pray to the author of rain. Her 6-year-old daughter lay rigid in her arms. The child's mouth was gaping open. Her eyes were fixed on some invisible object on the ceiling. Saliva spilled out of the corner of her mouth as deep guttural cries came wrenching out of her body. It was back. It was back. The demon had returned, and with full force. This excruciating, horrible game had played out every night the same way now for 3 months. The demon would come every night trying to twist the very life out of this little victim while mother sat there and rocked and cried her baby, praying to every god that ever was that they would just make it through to another dawn. By day, her daughter was just a normal, bright and happy 6-year-old little girl. She was just a regular kid who would skip around the house with laughter and smiles. She loved to skip stones across the wave tops of the sea that was at the village's edge. And if you watched her bounce through life during those sunny hours, you probably would have had no idea of the kind of torture that she went through every night. You could never have guessed about the unseen demon that slithered into her body with the evening's shadows, wrenching and twisting and tearing at her fragile life. Every night, the battle began all over again. It was a battle punctuated with devilish howls and frightful laughter and those unblinking eyes staring up at the ceiling. It was enough to make a mother's heart crack with grief. But there wasn't any time for her to grieve. There wasn't any time for indulging in her own feelings of self-pity or exhaustion, because it required vigilance, long, demanding, sleepless vigilance for her to keep her daughter alive every night. If this demon was determined to take her daughter's life, he wouldn't get it without a fight. As long as there was breath in her body, she would fight back against the demon and pray to the gods and rock her little girl in her lap. Which gods should she pray to tonight? Was there any God out there that she hadn't named yet? Was there any God out there who was listening at all? She was just so desperate. She had sought the help of any god, anywhere, who could possibly help keep her little girl alive. She had prayed to Isis and Osiris of Egypt. She had invoked Athena and Hermes of Greece. She had begged Mars and Bacchus of Rome. She had prayed her way through all the pantheon of gods in the old Canaanite religion of her ancestors, Ashtaroth and Moloch and Dagon and Baal, especially Baal, the Lord of storms, the Lord who brought rain, the master of seasons. Was there any God out there that she hadn't prayed to? Was there any God out there who could help? Out of the blackness of a sleepless midnight, the wind whispered another name to her. Yahweh, the God of Israel. Yahweh, the God of the Jews. But something in her heart recoiled at the thought. Why should she pray to the God of a nation who despised her people? Why should she seek the pity of a God whose followers showed no pity to people like her, to people they considered strangers and foreigners? It was this Yahweh and his followers who had driven her ancestors out of their ancestral home many generations ago. Surely there wasn't anything that could be gained by calling on the name of this God. But desperation is a powerful incentive for prayer. And as the little body in her lap convulsed and twisted, she found her lips forming a simple prayer. Yahweh, God of Israel, she said. Yahweh, the one who causes everything to be, look down and have pity on us who suffer through this evil spirit. For a moment, she felt that taut body in her arms go limp. The muscles that had clenched and so tight for so long seemed to let go of whatever they were grasping or fighting. For a moment, for a sweet, blissful, hopeful, wonderful moment, it seemed as if her prayer had been answered. The gaping mouth shut, the staring eyes closed, the rigid chest began to rise and fall with the regular rhythm of contented breathing. She stared at the little girl in her arms. Could she dare to hope at last that her daughter was well and that the struggle was over? But a few moments later, the demon returned again, twisting and arching and tearing away at her daughter. Yahweh, she pleaded again. Yahweh, oh Yahweh, do something. Save my daughter. Save her from this evil spirit. Heal my daughter, I pray. As dawn crept over the slopes of Mount Hermon to the east, she felt the little girl in her arms begin to relax. This was the way that it always went. There would be struggle every night when the demon came, but then when the sunshine came out, peace would be had. It was hell in the darkness, heaven in the light. But when would this cycle come to an end? When would this torture finally stop? She laid the sleeping girl on the bed and she slipped out of the house. A breeze from the sea blew up into her face as she hurried down the village streets to the well. Here at the well, as dawn announced the coming day, here was the one moment of companionship and company she could have. Here all the sisters of the village gathered at the well to draw water and to share news and swap recipes and stories. Here at least, she could always count on finding someone who would put an arm around her shoulder and comfort her. Poor woman, the village women would say to her, you have so much to trouble you. You see, her daughter's story was famous throughout the entire region. Everyone, it seemed, knew about the story of the little girl who never slept at night, but who ran around the town all day with this weird, unnatural brightness in her eyes. Daimonia, they called her, the demon girl, the possessed one. Every folk remedy ever invented had already been tried to cure her. Every doctor in the region had already been called in to examine this strange, otherworldly little girl. Every sacrifice, every offering a mother could afford had already been offered to any god who would listen. But everything so far was to no avail. But it didn't stop the constant flow of advice that she always got from the women at the well who had new ideas for her to try. Eggs, they would say one day. Eggs that have been sat on by an old hen, that will do the trick. Fish that have been caught on a boat beyond the horizon, fish will kick that demon out. This morning it was a new one that she heard. It was a new name. A new doctor or someone like a doctor who it was said could drive a demon out. To the south, the Jews were making quite a fuss over him, for they said that at his word, hundreds of demons had come out of a poor man's mind and taken over the bodies of pigs and plunged them into a lake. They claimed that he had the power to heal leprosy and blindness and crippled legs. Some even claimed that he had the power to bring the dead back to life. Go, the women at the well told her that morning. Go find him. Go tell him your problem. Perhaps he'll have pity on you and heal your daughter. Word has it that even now he's walking on the road to Sidon. But to her it sounded like it was just another foolish suggestion. A Jew have pity on her daughter? That was impossible. Why, there wasn't enough pity in the heart of any Jew anywhere to even throw a Gentile a bone, let alone drive a demon out. Gentiles, Canaanites, they were all just dogs to the Jews. They were all just seen as being undeserving of goodness and holiness. But still, the women at the village well urged her on. Go find him, they said. Who knows what he'll be able to do? Go find him on the Sidon Road. So she said goodbye to her friends, and she hurried back to her house to check on her sleeping child. And there was her little girl sleeping there on her mat. Her dark hair was all curled up into damp coils from the sweat of the all-night struggle. Her little girl would still be asleep for several hours now if all went as it usually did. It would be mid-morning before she would finally awake and go out and dance around the village as everyone started staring and gossiping once again. She looked at the door and she thought about what those women at the village well had said. What did she have to lose? She'd tried everything else. She'd tried everything she could possibly think of. What did she have to lose by going to find this miracle worker along the road to Sidon and begging him to heal her daughter? And so she kissed her sleeping daughter on her forehead and turned and started down the Sidon Road in the direction that the women had pointed. Perhaps if she hurried, she could meet this miracle worker and present her case to him before her daughter even woke up. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Her feet swung in rhythm down the road. Sweat beaded on her forehead and on her lips as she stared down the road in front of her. She was trying to look for any sign that might indicate there were other travelers on the road. She was looking for any sign of movement that would tell her where this miracle worker might be. And finally, as she was going down the road, she saw it. There was a faint cloud of dust, maybe a mile away, wisping up into the brilliant blue sky. She studied the cloud of dust in front of her. It had to be more than just one person, she thought. There was far too much dust for just one person to stir up. And so she picked up her pace, a little bit more excited now. left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, her heart catching up to the new rhythm of her run. Soon she would be able to make out what the figures were down the road. In a few moments she would know if this was the Jewish miracle worker and his followers or just some random ox cart passing by. At nearly half a mile from the dust cloud, she had her answer. She slowed her pace because she had spotted them, a cluster of about 10 men walking straight toward her down the road. She stopped in the road. Think now, she told herself over the pounding of her own heart. Think. What are you going to say when they approach? She would only have a few moments until they came and passed her in the road, and she knew that she had to have the right words. What was it the women at the well had called him? There was something about a son of David. But how could this young miracle worker be the son of David when that old Hebrew king had been dead for 1,000 years or so? But still, if that was the name that he had to be called, then that was the name that she would call him, because nothing could disturb the urgency of her mission. A cloud of dust grew closer, and soon she could pick out the one man for whom she was looking. But he wasn't any grand specimen of a man. He was of average height, and he had average features, with an average beard and an average stride. There wasn't anything about him that seemed particularly unusual or special. For a moment, she wondered if she was just wasting her time on another foolish errand she was on. What if this man and his followers just ignored her? What if they pretended not to hear her in order to avoid being contaminated by an idol worshiper like her? Jesus and his disciples were just within hearing when she began to cry out in her most pitiable voice, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely possessed by a demon." She stared intently at this young teacher's face to see if her words had made any impression on him. But she couldn't read anything yet from the distance. "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David," she said. "My daughter is severely possessed by a demon." By now, the walking men had drawn even closer to where she stood by on the side of the road. But none of them even broke their stride to stop to see what she wanted. It wasn't as if they hadn't heard her. I mean, she had been shouting really loud, and so she shouted out again, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David." But there still wasn't any flicker of recognition or any emotion at all on their faces. What would it take to get their attention, she wondered. What would it take to get the attention of these hard-hearted Jews who were too holy to talk with people like her? "Have mercy," she screamed one more time as they started to pass by her and go on down the road. This time, she could tell that several of them definitely had heard her. Several of them were clustering around the teacher. They were pointing at her and making signs that they wanted him to tell her to be off. They clearly didn't like her disturbing them in the middle of their morning walk. "Send her away," they were telling the teacher. "Send her away, for she's crying after us. Send her away. Let's get her out of here." And what was it that he was saying back to them? She couldn't believe her ears. "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel," he said. Her anger boiled up hot. Was there ever a more hard-hearted Jew than this one? Was he so good that he could only do miracles for good people, for good Jewish people? Every instinct in her body shouted at her to just forget the whole thing, to just abandon her mission and just storm back to her village and tell all those women at the well that they couldn't have been more wrong. But then an image flashed across her mind of a little girl with twisted dark hair, asleep on a mat. Her little girl, who in a matter of minutes would wake up, would go through the day, but then would face the horrors of the demon again at night. It was for her little girl that she was doing this. It was for her little girl that she was lowering herself to cry in the dust of the road, to try to get the attention and pity of this supposed Jewish miracle worker. It was her daughter's life and not her own pride that mattered most. And she decided that she wouldn't take no for an answer. She leaped up from the side of the road and she dashed alongside the walking men. Down on her knees she went, down in front of the miracle worker. If he didn't stop to hear her plea now, he'd have to knock her over to keep walking. If he couldn't be stopped by her begging, then perhaps he could be stopped by her body. The sharp stones of the road drove into her knees as she fell down and clutched at his feet. "Lord, Lord," she cried out with bitter tears. "Lord, help me. Please help me. My daughter needs you. Please help me." Slowly, she lifted up her eyes and stared into the face of this young teacher. She could see a sparkle in those dark eyes and a slight smile starting to form along the corners of his mouth. It was clear that he admired her tenacity. It was clear that he admired her determination and courage. But what was he saying now? He was speaking again loudly as if he wanted his disciples to hear. He said, "It's not fair to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." She could hear the murmurs of approval from among the other disciples. "Absolutely right," the disciples were saying to Jesus. You woman, you are nothing but a dog. The master doesn't have time for dogs like you." But the teacher's eyes weren't agreeing with what the disciples were saying. Did he really mean those harsh-sounding words that seemed to roll so easily off his tongue? Or was this all part of some lesson that he was trying to teach to his followers? She quickly looked around at the huddle of faces standing over her. She saw those smug, superior looks of the disciples. But when she looked at the teacher's face, she saw a gentle and amused look on him. His eyes instantly told her that he clearly never meant for his words to be taken seriously. So quickly she gathered her wits about her and she shot back the line that she somehow knew she was supposed to say. "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." She watched that grin spread across Jesus' face all the way. She saw the laugh starting to well up inside him because whatever she had said, it had clearly been what he had wanted to hear. He looked around at all those smug faces of his disciples as if to say, "Did you hear what she just said? She has it absolutely right." "Oh, woman," Jesus said, bending down to the dirt and helping her stand back up to her feet. "Oh, woman, your faith is great. Your faith is great. Be it done for you as you desire." And somehow, in a way that only a mother could ever understand, she knew in her heart that her prayer had been answered. Though she had a mile or more of walking in the hot sun to get back to the village from which she'd come, she already knew what she would find there. She would find her little girl with dark and curly hair. Her little girl with those beautiful eyes. Those eyes that she decided, those eyes that looked like the eyes of Jesus. For in those eyes, there was a perpetual smile. Friends, today through this gospel story, we celebrate the tenacity and courage of parents. We celebrate the mothers and fathers who've hung on through thick and thin. We celebrate and honor parents who've nurtured and supported and taught and reproved and loved their children as best as they possibly could. Like the nameless woman on the side and road, they've been fiercely loyal to their kids. They've been passionately in favor of their children, and they've refused to give up on them no matter what. Even when their kids were terrified of a piano recital or of a first day of school or of a first date or college exam, these are parents who don't give up. They pick up their kids every time they stumble over toys or on the playground or in business or relationships in life. Great parents are men and women with tenacity and grit. They're men and women with Velcro on the palms of their hands. They're men and women who look at their children every single day through those smiling eyes of Jesus. And so today on this VBS Sabbath, I want to celebrate parents for that quality in them that's most God-like, for their unflinching, determined, tenacious love that refuses to ever let their children go. It's that tenacious love that causes parents to bring their kids to Vacation Bible School. It's that tenacious love that causes parents to sacrifice for their children to ensure that they receive a Christian education. It's that tenacious love that brings their children to be dedicated to the Lord. It's that tenacious love that leads parents to their knees morning, noon, and night, praying for their kids and asking Jesus to take care of them. It's that tenacity that God honors. It's that determination and courage which God always rewards. It's that refusal to give up when a lesser person would have easily given up that marks them as being special people in deserving of special merit and recognition today. And so this morning, I want to commend you, the mothers and fathers here today, for your determination, for your courage, and for your tenacity. Some of you are single parents, trying by the grace of God to raise godly children without a second parent in the home. Some of you are uncles and aunts and other members of the family who have had to take up the mantle of Christian parenthood. Some of you know what it means to be the glue that keeps a marriage together when financial pressures and disagreements threaten to pull the whole family apart. Some of you have had the joy of becoming grandparents and great-grandparents and seeing those labors rewarded in the third and fourth generation of those who love Jesus. As Jesus made clear so long ago to another parent in another age, you have a quality in you for which all of heaven rejoices, for you do not give up. And today, I hope that you'll hear the blessing that Jesus once gave to that woman as a blessing that he's giving to your life too. O woman, O man, O mother, O father, your faith is great. Your faith is great. Be it done for you as you desire.